Good morning to you. In this video, we're going to be seeing what it's like to fly 2 short-haul flights aboard British Airways in their business class. We'll be checking out every aspect of the BA experience, both in the air and on the ground, including their lounges and what it's like to transit through London Heathrow after the introduction of the UK ETA. I'll be flying from Berlin Airport over to London Heathrow and then onwards to Manchester. But that means that I have to leave the Schengen zone here, but luckily, I've got a little hack for that. All you've got to do is go into this lounge, which you get access to with any British Airways business class ticket, among many other types of tickets. But the real key here is that you can exit the Schengen zone via this lounge exit. And there's almost never any line here as compared to the more public parts of the airport. And strangely enough, I was supposed to be flying a different airline today. I was supposed to be flying Finnair. You can see they're parked right over there. But just yesterday, they announced a pilot strike. Well, at least for my flight from Helsinki to Manchester. It was some kind of partial strike. But anyway, I had to be rebooked because today there are just no flights from Helsinki to Manchester. So a coffee, a quick stay, and it's already boarding time. Today I'll be departing from gate C12. Here you can see all of the Schengen flights are actually just below where I just went through border control. And this airport is a little bit of a maze, but now I'm going one floor further down from there. And even another floor down says E0. I guess that means Erdgeschoss. But actually this is kind of like floor -2 here at Berlin Airport. But here it is, British Airways flight to London Heathrow. When you find yourself down here in this basement at Berlin Airport, it's never really a good sign, especially if you're not flying like a low-cost carrier, just because it means you're gonna have to take a bus to your airplane.
We'll begin boarding your British Airways flight BA9872 London Heathrow.
Thanks so much. Here you can see, it's a bus as promised. How do you feel about flying in C1A?
Right.
Of course, nobody loves a bus ride over to the plane, but it did give me a chance to observe this giant candy cane up close. And just about a 10-minute ride in the bus later, and we're over here at our little Airbus. How are you? Good, man.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. And I have made it here on board. Just got to get my bag up.
We're just all tidied up and ready to go. Thanks for boarding so promptly. And we'll fine-tune, of course, the arrival time and weather for you once we're on our way. Campbell in charge of the crew will look after your comfort and safety throughout this short flight. It's good to have you aboard, and once again, you're very welcome. Thank you.
And boarding was rather quick. We've actually already started pushing back here, and it is a really clear day out there today. Very beautiful weather, especially for spring in Germany. And I've got 1C. Here you can see this would be 1B, basically like almost all of the business classes you'll find flying around in Europe. These are just economy seats with the middle seat blocked off. And my second flight over to Manchester from London Heathrow will also be aboard an Airbus narrow-body plane. So now that we've got that rather important piece of information out of the way, the real question at hand is, what is the Euro business experience like on a short-haul flight in 2025? Is it worth paying for or not? And make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video, because we will be going over exactly what I paid for these flights. And over there you've got a North Atlantic Dreamliner sitting there. It's got a kind of weird route flying from, I forget if it's Miami or Fort Lauderdale Airport to Berlin every single day, flying there and back. But for now, we're almost to our final runway, so let's get in the air and see what this flight is like. And today we are taking off to the east, which means we're just about to do the very famous, I believe in German it's called Kotzendrehung, or vomit-inducing turn upon takeoff. Well, never mind, there was no vomit-inducing turn. We actually turned the other way and got a very beautiful, almost fully clear view of the city of Berlin.
Very good morning. My name is Campbell, your flight manager. It's my pleasure to welcome you all on board.
But it was just about lunchtime, and I just hadn't had enough time in the lounge to actually eat anything there. But luckily the crew was really fast in bringing around this beauty of a short-haul business class meal, and service started immediately after hitting 10,000 feet. And I will say, I've flown British Airways in their Euro business class a handful of times before. They've never had such interesting food as what they have today. Today there was the choice between a sort of basic chicken dish, still not a typical breakfast dish by any means, or this vegetarian, Japanese-style mango edamame wasabi mixture. So, not a vegetarian, but that doesn't mean I can't eat the vegetarian meal. And well, that is actually really good. There's a ton of stuff on this little plate. It's like a little cabbage salad over here, edamame, mango, rice in a wasabi sauce with some soy sauce that I poured over it, a few pieces of avocado, even some ginger, and a little bit of seaweed. This meal was completely unexpected. It's really good. And this dessert they've got here is pretty eye-catching. It says it's from a company called Doko, I guess. I'm not familiar, but it looks something on par with like a Gucci type brand or something. Let's give it a try. That's quite good. There's chocolate, there's vanilla, it's eggy. So as far as dining goes, it's been surprisingly nice here with BA this morning. And although this aircraft is outfitted with Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi is supposedly not available on today's flight. Actually haven't gotten down to the bottom of that because it was announced that it wouldn't be available. But then the network does show up and it appears as though you could buy Wi-Fi. But before we start our descent, I'm just taking a moment to pop over here by the loo, the bathroom. It's small, as is would be expected on a narrow-body plane, but there's a few kind of premium touches here. So yeah, aside from the Wi-Fi not working, this flight's been perhaps just a little bit better than expected compared to my other BA experiences in all honesty. Really though, there is one peculiar downside to selecting, well I didn't select it, but sitting in seat 1C. You're basically halfway in the aisle here, so if you board first, a lot of people might end up bumping into you. I'd probably recommend selecting seat 1A instead if given the chance. If for whatever strange reason you prefer aisle seats and you want to sit in the first row on this aircraft, I'd probably go with 1D. But we're just beginning our descent right now, so let's see what it's like transiting over at London Heathrow. And at least for me, that's going to be extra interesting to see because this is going to be my first time having to have a UK ETA or travel authorization to enter the country. And do note that even just for transiting through the UK, now many nationalities are required to purchase and be approved for a UK ETA. In fact, last time I flew BA, it took quite some time to transit over at London Heathrow, and that was before they implemented the ETA rule. Those flights were in economy class though, so if you're interested in checking out a review of what it's like to fly BA in economy, definitely do give that video a watch after this one. And slowly but surely, we descended into the London area to much cloudier weather. But finally we broke through the clouds and got to some nicer views before landing.
Before you leave us today, please check you have all your personal belongings, including anything you may have.
And like I was saying, I would say that was a surprisingly delightful short-haul British Airways flight. They've definitely been doing some improvement, at least based on my minimal amount of experiences with them. But here we are, about to enter the UK and see what this whole ETA process is. Well, actually, I hate to break it to you, but basically nothing changed. Once you've paid for your ETA, it's registered under your passport number and entering the UK is the same as it's always been. It really still seems to be clearing security here that could take you quite a bit of time. So, not an hour this time, but still a good around 30 minutes. That seems to always kind of be the case. Flying business class, there is technically a kind of priority line that you can walk through, and I did walk through. But for the actual security screening, it doesn't really help you that much, so I think you just have to account for a little bit of time changing terminals to get through security when transiting at Heathrow. I'm flying with about a 2-hour layover though, so that still leaves me a good maybe 30-40 minutes before my boarding time right now. So I'll just make a little short lounge stop over here and see what they've got for lunch. And this isn't the only British Airways lounge over here in this terminal. This is just the south one. There's also a north one, and in fact the south one has a few different lounges. But this one for me, if you can only access the business class lounge, is definitely the more spacious and much cozier one. Yeah, this is pretty much always the case. You can see here, this is the current lounge occupancy. So the first lounge is right here as well. This is the Club Lounge South that I'm about to go to. There's one by the B gates. That's a smaller lounge. That's not that busy, but the North Lounge is at 86% capacity. Every time I've ever tried to go to the North Lounge, it's just like really, really busy. What's still spacious is a kind of relative concept just because this is a very, very busy airport. So even this lounge always pretty much has a semi-busy feeling. You can see back that way is a very big room with nice seating, but over here is always a much quieter corner. I usually find myself going over this way. But we can just have a little walk around. There's always a nice selection of wine over at this lounge. But it's much too early for wine. Food is what I'm here for. The food is just kind of all in the middle. Lots of drink selections. A pretty solid place if you're hungry, thirsty, or feel like reading BA's High Life magazine that doesn't seem to actually be on their planes anymore. Oh yeah, and there is a ton of coffee available all throughout this lounge. And this is that larger part of the lounge. It's usually a bit busier and lighter, hypothetically, but who are we kidding? This is London. It looks like this most of the time. I ended up having more than enough time to have an unrushed and pretty tasty lunch in the lounge. Honestly, just having access to this lounge over here does make a pretty big difference. But right now it's boarding time, meaning time to go fly on a very, very short BA flight to Manchester. Now, when I had arrived, landed at the airport about 2 hours ago, my departure gate was said to be A19. So all in the same terminal, but now I've been moved to gate B44, meaning you have to take a train to get over here. And I could have actually gone to the less visited B gates lounge just because, you know, a lot of people depart from the A gates. So typically those people would not come over to the B gates just to use the lounge. And yeah, over here with a lot of the long haul flights and stuff, but just a little short flight to Manchester. I had to wait around a few minutes by the gate before boarding actually started, but once the first boarding group was called, I was able to board with my business class ticket. But now, we're going down through the zigzaggy maze type thing that is access to a jet bridge at London Heathrow Airport. You can see there's two jet bridges here because they would often be parking their wide-body aircraft over here, but of course, today I'm just flying aboard an Airbus 319, but it's kind of a cool old Airbus 319 with BEA or British European Airways livery. So, now on board the second flight here, but a little bit further back in row 8, the very back of the business class or Club Europe cabin. Again, these are just economy seats with the middle blocked off. But in this case, there's already a tray blocking off the middle seat, unlike the bulkhead seats we had in that first A320 flight. But though boarding seems slow, the whole aircraft, and it's a full flight by the way, was boarded about 10 minutes before actual departure time, and the crew was quite kind and welcoming upon boarding. Plus, unlike on the first flight, and the first time I've ever seen it like this on a short-haul flight on British Airways, there is an actual printed menu for afternoon tea, which sounds very British and very nice. I honestly couldn't say if they just had run out of menus on the earlier flight and this is a newer thing that British Airways is doing, or maybe they just do it on domestic flights, but regardless, we've just started pushing back, so let's see what this flight is like.
If you have any questions, please ask for cabin crew.
And despite the airport being pretty busy, that Air India plane just took off and it seems to be the only plane in front of us, so we're just about to be in the air. Oops, looks like SAS got in front of us too. Aha, and Air Canada too. But United has to wait for us to take off. Ha ha ha, United. So we are now up in the air, over 10,000 feet. I suppose there won't be much of a cruising altitude because yeah, this flight is only going to be 30, maybe 35, 40 minutes. Like, we'll be landing in 20 minutes from now, basically. But still enough time to put your seat back and get real comfortable. And apparently enough time to serve this entire huge menu. Coronation chicken and spinach on malted bread. Not sure about malted bread. Not sure about what the coronation part of the chicken is. But I want to try it. Quail eggs, smoked salmon. This sounds good. And you've really got to give it to the cabin crew on this flight. They started service really quick, and on such a short flight, even in business class, it's totally fathomable that they wouldn't even really serve any food. And we have already started our descent. We actually started our descent right before I got my food. I forgot what this is called. What's it called? Tea time or whatever. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Afternoon tea. That salmon is actually like super good. Clotted cream. Strawberry jam.
Cabin crew, 10 minutes to landing, 10 minutes, thank you.
So happy together.
Larger items, including laptops, must now be switched off and stowed away safely.
And in fact, this flight was so short, bit. Yeah, I was not nearly able to finish that meal.
Hey there. Sorry, just take the cup.
Okay. Okay. Alright.
Thank you.
So the good news is that we're more than on time. We're probably going to be early. I can see this is the nice part of northern England, or the middle of the UK, where I'll be spending the next 6 days exploring places I've never been in my life. But yeah, the bad thing is I wasn't able to try the sticky toffee nor finish my whole meal very well. So I'm going to be hungry and I'm going to have to go to Greg's? No, I'm not going to Greg's. Maybe Nando's?
Thank you. Cease for landing, please.
So by now you've got to be wondering what the price is, and for this flight, I paid 22,500 American Airlines miles, plus right around $44 US in taxes and fees. Now, normally, if I were flying from Berlin to Manchester, I'd probably just suck it up a bit and book either Ryanair or EasyJet, because they fly the route non-stop, and sometimes they do have flights for like £20. But on the day I wanted to fly, I guess because it's Easter week, their flights were like £200, £300. Anyway, here we are in Manchester. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Cabin crew, thank you. Doors to manual and cross-check.
BA short haul business class, check.
What's your
Thanks.
channel?
It's David G Travel.
David.
I like your pin. Oh. Last name, just it's like my last name, but just the letter
Like
G.
David G.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
look you up.
Alright, take care, brother. Thank you.